Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, a place where you can keep informed of the latest business and tech trends by listening to stories of other people in your field and how they are overcoming challenges with emerging technologies. Join me in learning from the guests actionable tips and lessons learned to obtain greater clarity on how you or your business can leverage technology. And today I've got a special guest who has spent over 2 decades helping developers spend more time innovating and creating great software. His name is Nick Durkin, and he's the Field CTO of Harness, which is a platform for automating the worst parts of developers' jobs. And Nick has a wealth of experience in software development, and he understands the challenges that developers face every single day. We all know the importance of developers, and when I say that out loud, I find myself turning into Steve Ballmer and just want to keep shouting, developers, 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 developers. But with developers spending less time coding and more time managing operations, Nick has a unique perspective on the current notion of shifting left. Because recent studies are showing that developers only spend 3 hours a day coding, and the rest of the time spent on the plumbing, shall we say. So in this podcast, Nick is going to share his insights on what organisations are getting wrong when it comes to shifting left, and why he believes that the industry has talked about shifting left for too long, burdening engineers with absolutely everything, so they're getting bogged down with that work that nobody wants to do. But I also want to hear more about Nick's vision of shifting left and how it's not about the workload, but about the information. And by shifting information all the way left, teams can empower engineers to ultimately write phenomenal code and leverage systems to get it where it needs to go. And he has first-hand experiences of the industry's challenge, and he's going to share his knowledge on the next steps for teams who want to embrace this new way of shifting left, and also discuss things like cloud cost management considerations and what organisations should be doing in the face of economic uncertainty at the moment. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Arizona, where Nick Durkin is going to talk about all this and also how organisations can optimise their software delivery and development processes and ultimately empowering their engineers to focus on what they love, creating innovative and high-quality software. But enough from me. Let's get Nick on the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Nick Durkin. I'm our Field CTO here at Harness. I was employee number 9. Before that, I came from the big banks where we created massive fraud prevention and things around security and compliance and regulatory pieces, payment systems like Zelle and so forth. But honestly, been building startups, finding first customers, finding market fit for quite a while now. And I've been at Harness for over almost 6 years now.
I'm conscious there'll be a few people listening hearing about Harness for the first time, especially because we have a global audience as well. So can you tell the listeners a little about what Harness is and how the platform is helping developers automate those worst parts of the job?
I think that's exactly it. We look at the entire software delivery lifecycle from code all the way through to production. This includes cloud costs. This includes security testing. And we genuinely want to remove the worst part of that entire process. So no one wants to sit there and wait for their unit tests to run when they only wrote 50 lines of code. Nobody wants to babysit deployments. Heck, nobody wants to write scripts to deploy things. No one wants to aggregate, normalize, and deduplicate all their security findings. And nobody wants to turn on and off infrastructure when it's not being used. And Harness is designed to use AI, ML, and a massive amount of automation to truly remove that. And when I say AI and ML, I mean a massive amount of machine learning, a tiny bit of AI. We built some really cool neural networks to think about things like your best engineers, but genuinely to remove the worst parts. And that's something what most people can get around. They can get behind using AI to remove the worst part of people's jobs.
And there's a lot of talk at the moment of just how much the workplace has changed in the last few years, and even the last 6 months with the arrival of ChatGPT. But I'm curious, as a developer with 20 years experiences, how have you seen the industry shift, especially in terms of the amount of time developers spend on operations versus, let's say, coding?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part, is that we've taken a shift and we started with everybody was specialized. So plumbers did plumbing, electricians did electrical, and everyone worked together. We all had the information when we needed it. And we went to a place where we wanted everyone to be able to do everything. And I think that's actually hurt the industry. The idea of like a full stack developer now includes literally everything from, writing code all the way to getting into production and owning it all the way through. It's a struggle for anyone to own every aspect of that. And I think what we've seen is people are finally fed up with all the extra stuff. They want to do what they're good at. They want to be empowered. They want to be enabled to do the things they're amazing at, not take on these tedious jobs that maybe they're not suited for.
And something that I wanted to highlight on this podcast was the concept of shifting left. For anyone that's not heard that, can you just discuss that concept of shifting left and how it relates to software delivery for anyone outside that space?
Sure. When we think about shifting left, so left we think of the developer, right more operations, and so that's your gamut. And the idea of shifting left is bringing it more towards development time. And I think the problem is what we did, and I think this actually comes to your previous question. We shifted the workload left. We put all the work on the developers. We put all the work on the engineers, and that's not what it was intended for. So shift left, the idea really, and the concept should be around shifting the information left. So what that means is, as a developer, I want to know what my security test outputs are now, not 2 weeks after they're in production. I want to be able to test things now, not after they're, 3 phases down the line. I want to bring all that information when it's valuable to me. I want to know that when I'm about to deploy a software into production, that it's going to blow through my budget well before my CFO calls me. And so it's not about bringing the workload left. And I think that's where, as an industry, we made a mistake. And so, at Harness specifically, we want to bring the information left so that we can make the appropriate decisions. We can empower people to make the appropriate decisions at the right time. Make it easy for them to do the right things, make it hard for them to do the wrong things.
And just to bring that to life a little, how do you envision shifting left with a focus on information rather than workload? And how can organizations better implement this approach? Is there anything you can share around that too?
Yeah, I think this requires a massive amount of automation. In order to do this, we have to set this up in a programmatic approach that allows that information to be available when it's needed. So I don't want to get the call from my CFO a month later, hey, why are our bills too high? Where was that spike from? I want to know when I'm deploying. I want to know that I've over-provisioned my infrastructure. As a developer, I want to make sure my app runs. That's most important. So I'm going to ask for way too much hardware, way too much memory, and the reality is I don't need it. But if I can actively see and understand, hey, I only need 10% of that, I'll gladly do it. And so I think it's about bringing the right information. If I know I'm introducing a CVE at code commit, I'll go fix that. I'll go use a different library. We can go, manage that. But if it's found once it's in production, it becomes a challenge. And so really it's about adding programmatic steps, right? Governing those. And again, making it easy for people to do the right things, hard for them to do the wrong things by giving them the information they need to solve the problem now, not later.
And I don't expect you to name any names here, but can you share any success stories or examples of how Harness has helped organizations improve their software delivery processes? Because I think there'll be a lot of people listening, that's where they need to get to. It'd be great to hear some stories around that.
Sure. I think, we can name a few customers. LogMeIn specifically, they wanted faster deployment times.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about 10% faster or 50% faster. I'm talking about 98% faster deployment times using Harness. 98%.
Wow.
Insane when you start automating and truly doing this. This is in the build side, we're quoted as being 4 times faster than any other CI tool for building. And this is, true. So United Airlines came and actually talked at our conference. And one of the things that they did is, they went from, what was it? 22-minute build process down to like a 5-minute build process.
Whoa.
Right, that's 75% reduction. So 4x faster than they work. Not only that, they're giving about 40% of their developer time back. Right. So they've literally increased developer productivity 40% by removing those worst parts of the job. And I can go on and on, like literally I can give you just about every customer on the planet. The whole reason, people buy this and start automating these processes is again, to remove that toil and then also to add governance. Right.
And I think it's such an important topic there. And it's especially important you share those stories because no matter where anybody's listening in the world to this podcast, there's economic uncertainty everywhere, and a lot of businesses are challenged with doing more with less. So how important is cloud cost management for organizations, and what considerations should they be taking into account, do you think?
Sure. I think for the longest time, cloud cost has been something that's put on the CFO's plate and the finance teams. And the reality is that's not where it belongs. We believe it belongs with the engineers that are actually deploying software. Right? We're consuming all the hardware. We should know the usage of it. And then more importantly, we should be able to use it intelligently. The same way you have a light switch maybe in your office that automatically turns off when you leave and turns on. Why aren't we doing that with our infrastructure as well? And so, you take people like Ulta Beauty specifically, they saved 82% of their cloud costs by understanding what the utilization actually was and right-sizing it accordingly, turning off the things that aren't being used automatically. So not having someone figure out how to do it themselves, but have a system and a tool that does it for you.
And I'm curious, a few moments ago, you were talking about you could mention so many different customers' names there and very similar stories. Are there any trends in the kind of conversations that you're having with your customers and the kind of things that they're coming and asking you for help with? Is there anything you can share around that? Because I suspect there'll be a lot of business leaders listening, thinking they're on their own in these certain areas, but they're not. There's a lot of big trends and everyone's asking the same questions, right?
Everybody's asking the same question. So everybody has 17 different tools right now to get their software out. Their cost isn't currently tied to those tooling, and it becomes rather, unsustainable. And so the questions that we're getting are, I want that developer productivity back. Right? I want to make sure our developers have the right tools in place, that we're using the time appropriately, but they also need a way to fund it. And so this is one of the interesting things right now. It's how can it take hard dollar savings, like cut costs in, say, server infrastructure, or different cloud costs to actually even fund this. And that's one of the unique things that Harness has, is that we can go and make sure you cut hard dollar costs by servers you're not using in non-production all the time for you, waiting till you need them again, turn them back on. We can also show you visibility from Jira ticket all the way through to production, regardless of your software systems, and really understand where your engineers need help, where maybe we've got gaps in process, right? So we can start shortening those times and make those lives easier. And then ultimately, again, refactoring CI, CD, security testing. And so the questions come around, how do we do this effectively? How do we fund it? How do we roll it out quickly? And that's really what we're designed to help with.
And if I was to ask you to gaze into a virtual crystal ball and look into the future, how do you see software delivery and automation evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And what is Harness doing to stay ahead of that curve too?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things, everybody's been deploying software since the beginning of time, but no one would write their own compiler today.
Yeah.
No one would build their own CI tool today. And I see in the next 5 years, it won't be an amalgamation of 17 different tools. It'll be platforms. And you don't have to believe me in that one. We've already seen the rise of platform engineering.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason for that is this is really what's required to operate at scale. I think in the future, what you'll see is more and more leverage of AI. This is what we did 6 years ago. We didn't want people babysitting deployments. And so we said, let's use AI. Let's train neural networks to think like your best engineers so that they don't have to look through logs and your best engineers don't have to look through metrics when you're deploying. And now we can start babysitting those deployments for them. And so I think you'll see a massive amount of artificial intelligence used in continuous delivery, in builds through the whole software delivery lifecycle around removing that worst part of the job. I think that's where you're going to see a key focus, because that's, again, where people can genuinely get behind. Right? If you're removing the worst part of a job, everybody's fine with automating that.
And how long do you think it will be for businesses to accept and adopt AI? Because there's so many knee-jerk reactions at the moment from, hey, let's say generative AI, it lies convincingly to you to it's going to take away our jobs. And then at the other end of the scale, of course, we've got people saying, no, we can be more productive. It can actually help us be more efficient working this way. How do you see businesses adapting? And where do you stand on this change that we're in at the moment? Because in many ways it feels incredibly exciting, doesn't it? Like the birth of the internet almost.
It's astronomically exciting. So, right now we're at a place where generative AI is a professor, it's a teacher, right? It's not a scientist. It doesn't test its theories. And so right now is actually, this is the fun age. This is the amazing time. So right now, in that time between when it becomes, right now it's a professor becomes a scientist. Now is the time when we get to do all the amazing things. And so, good engineers become amazing engineers. Amazing engineers are just, infinitely scalable. And so now we see this massive uptick in productivity from all of our engineering talent. And so that's one of the most amazing things that we've seen quickly. And I think there's a massive opportunity to take advantage right now while it's in this area where it is a professor. If we start going testing, and that's where we've focused ours. Like if you look at where our AI is focused, when I run chaos engineering tests or when I run load tests or when I run my unit tests, I want to do it intelligently. I don't want to do it, just run everything, right? I want to be able to compare. I want to be able to do that without having humans, be in the process, so that I can make sure this is the most secure, this is the highest available and the fastest version of your code that can be deployed. And that's where Harness really uses our AI for that. And I see more and more companies getting into that. We were early, right? 6 years ago that people thought we were a little crazy, but now it seems like we're in a good spot.
Wow, I absolutely love chatting with you today. And I can't thank you enough for taking a bit of time out of your busy day to share your insights. Before you go, I'm going to ask you to leave everyone listening with one final gift. And that is a book that has inspired you, or a song that means something to you that we can add to our Spotify playlist. All I'm going to ask is, what are you going to leave everyone listening with and why?
Okay, perfect. So I think we're going to go with, we'll go with the Eagles.
Oh,
and
yes.
we're going. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Eagles. My kids play quite a bit of the Eagles, so I'm going to go with Hotel California because it was one of the first songs that they actually played on stage, and that's what we're going to leave it with, is the Eagles and Hotel California. I think that's the song. As far as a book, I love The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. It's great for teams that really want to start getting in and tackling hard things, and having those conversations.
Wow, I will get both of those added, one to the Amazon wish list, one to the Spotify playlist. And for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about Harness, what's the best starting point for everything to take a big deep dive in anything we talked about today and more?
Absolutely. Go to harness.io. Genuinely, we've got a lot of open source projects out there as well that you can download, use for free. Anything out there is available in either a trial or a free edition as well. You can just start using it. That's the neat part. So go to harness.io, sign up. Of course, we've got trainings and materials and documentation out there for you as well. Go ahead, give it a shot. And if not, we can definitely come help you do it as well. So I've got a full sales engineering team that can come help and get you guys onboarded quickly.
Well, just like that Eagles song that you love there, you can check out on this podcast, but you could never leave. So hopefully we'll get you back on later in the year, see how things are evolving. But just thank you for sharing your story and your insights today. Thank you.
Well, Neil, genuinely appreciate it. And I would love the opportunity to come back, talk about any topic. It's been wonderful. So thank you so much for having us on the show.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Well, I hope you enjoyed the insights and expertise shared by Nick today. And for me, I just loved how he's shown us that shifting left is not just about the workload, but it's about the information flow. And how by empowering engineers to have access to the right information at the right time, teams can focus on innovation and delivering higher quality software faster. And I also appreciate Nick's discussion on cloud cost management considerations, especially at a time where economic uncertainty is pretty much a given all over the world. And I think it's so relevant in today's rapidly changing business landscape. And if you found this podcast informative and useful, please share it with your colleagues and friends or anyone you think might find it useful. If you've got any questions or any insights that you'd like to add to today's conversation, we only have 20-25 minutes every day. And I know we only scratched the surface. If any of you want to dig a little bit deeper, or if you think we've missed something, please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just @NeilC.Hughes. We can keep this conversation going between all of us. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, please remember, subscribe and leave a review if you have a few moments, because it helps against those pesky algorithms that we're all at mercy to right now. But other than that, I'll be back bright and early tomorrow. So thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.